Hello, Reds. Welcome back to another episode of Liverpool Latest. I'm your host, Matt. Thank you for joining me on today's video. I have a couple of updates in regards to the Liverpool women's team. Also, some talks in regards to both Konate and Real Madrid, as we're going to kind of break down that situation a little bit. And, of course, Jamie Carragher has some recent comments on Arne Slot and the club, because why wouldn't he? If you enjoyed today's video or podcast, be sure to leave a like or a rating if the platform allows you to. Comment down below as well if you have anything. If you have any thoughts on what I've talked about today. And most importantly, be sure to follow and subscribe to the show on your favorite platforms so that way the show continues to grow. Let's get right to it. Gareth Taylor, the Liverpool Women's Club manager, has been basically giving us a bit of an update on his own latest column on the Liverpool official website, basically describing to us what's going to be happening in this Sunday's match in regards to Leicester. Here's the deal. It's a very interesting setup going on here because this match is going to determine who basically stays in last place. Liverpool are currently sitting at 11th with 10 points, and Leicester City is sitting one notch down below at 12th place with 9 points. So this basically determines if Liverpool goes back down to last place or Leicester continues to stay down that way and Liverpool actually moves up, if I'm not mistaken, to 10th or 9th place, one of the two, because I think they'll be ahead of West Ham if they win. So either way, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Gareth Taylor gave us some updates as far as injuries go. There's some doubt in regards to Denise O'Sullivan, who is returning from international duty with an injury, although the injury is reportedly not as serious as they had first feared, so she is a bit touch and go for Sunday, depending on how she's been doing in training. Returning would also be Anna Hosendahl, who has been training well and has been gradually building back her match minutes. Players who are unavailable or injured, depending on certain scenarios. Well, unavailable entirely is Fuka Nagano, who is away at the Asian Cup, the Women's Asian Cup, and Riza Shimizu is also in that same tournament as well. Midfield injuries include Marie Hobinger, Sam Kerr, and Sophie Lundgaard. So the midfield is a little bit of a mess at the moment, so Taylor hinted that there has to be some adaptations and some adjustments that need to be made. A flexible player in regards to that would be, I'm going to butcher this, Sari Holland, who could be moved to different roles within that position. Apparently, there have been players who have benefited since the break, like Beta Olsen, who's probably been one of the better players, Cornelia Kopax, Zara Shaw, Lucy Parry, and so many more. So basically, it really comes down to, how do they adjust in the midfield, and do they have the offensive prowess to essentially beat Leicester City in the goals and basically confirm that they will be moving up a notch or two in the Women's Super League. It'll be interesting to see because both the Liverpool women's team and the men's team play on the exact same day, which is this Sunday. I'll be talking about Liverpool's Tottenham match in tomorrow's episode, so be sure to watch that. Now we go on to the men's team, which is what we typically talk about here on the channel. It seems like there's been a key update on Konate and his contract position, and it seems as though reports are saying that Konate is willing to sign a new Liverpool contract despite his deal going out in, or at least coming to an end in just a handful of months, if not less than that. It expires in the summer, and considering that talks have been ongoing for over a year, despite being constructive and cordial, it seems like there has been no breaking point on either side to offer a deal or accept the deal. There have been rumors of deals being accepted or offered, but there has not been any concrete news on it. And it seems as though, despite the fact that Konate is saying that he's open to staying, and Arne Slot has even gone on and said, we are in talks with him, we wouldn't be negotiating if we didn't want him to stay. Goes to show that they see him as a leader on the defensive side, as well as well, I don't know about this part, but a potential successor to Virgil van Dijk. I don't think so at all, personally speaking. I don't think that's the case. I believe he's a good partner to Van Dijk, but I think we need someone who's a little bit more Van Dijk in the center back role to properly give us a replacement for him. Of course, we wouldn't be talking about this if Real Madrid wasn't still somehow involved, despite wishy-washy interest over the course of the last several months. Last time that this was kind of talked about was the whole ordeal when we were leading up to facing them in the Champions League, which we would eventually beat them in. And apparently Konate had a pretty solid performance in that game. Since then, interest has seemed to have waned, but now since these talks are right back in the news cycle again, it seems as though Real Madrid may or may not be still interested in signing Konate on a free when the contract expires. So we are only a few short months away from this contract expiring. Okay? The fact that there has been no agreement or even remote progress, it seems, on either side leads me to think, as a fan and as a amateur analyst, that this is not going to happen. Do I think Liverpool signs a new deal with Konate? I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's looking unlikely more and more every day. Do I think he's going to go right to Real Madrid? I also think that might be unlikely. I don't see how Real Madrid could possibly want Konate given his very inconsistent form throughout the course of the season, and they themselves are already kind of struggling a little bit in some regards, so I don't think they want more problems than they are already having at this moment in time. Do I think Konate will be sold before the contract expires? I don't think so. I think if they're that hell-bent on wanting him to stay, they're just going to let it. They're going to keep talking with him until the contract expires, and then there's nothing else to talk about. It would be disappointing, but I honestly don't see any of those scenarios really happening right now. I definitely don't see Real Madrid picking him up, that's for sure. And some people might be asking yourselves, why are Real Madrid constantly targeting our players, especially those whose contracts are slowly but surely coming up? Well, let's talk about the free transfer superstar strategy, shall we? Because it seems as though every time Real Madrid get a major signing, it is because a player or a very notable player from a very notable club is their contract expiring. They realize that they have an opportunity to save a little bit of money and or offer them more money than what they were probably getting from their original clubs, and they can basically build a super team, more or less. They're very aggressive, extremely aggressive, actually, when it comes to this potential. Well, not potential. This particular strategy. A example of that would be Kylian Mbappe, who joined after letting his contract run down at PSG. Antonio Rudiger, who left Chelsea on a free as well. David Alaba, who left Bayern Munich also on a free. And of course, let's not forget Mr. Trent Alexander-Arnold, who also signed on a free, which is still very much heavily debated amongst the Liverpool fans of whether or not he was in the right to do so or not. But here's the deal. The fact that they continue to do this is quite shocking because the writing's kind of on the wall here, okay? We actually have a couple, like I said, we have players that are now coming up on to the end of their contracts, and who's to say that Real Madrid doesn't try to get them? Konate probably being the most recent one, Trent being the one last year, and shockingly, Virgil van Dijk could potentially be part of that conversation. Though I highly doubt it because he's an aging player and he's not a spring chicken anymore. So I don't see how Real Madrid could possibly want to have an aging player on their team, despite him being relatively still dominant in his respective position. So the other thing is that Real Madrid know that Premier League clubs are financially stable. So it's another subtle factor that we have to keep in mind because clubs like Liverpool don't usually need to sell. So Madrid know that the only realistic way to get any sort of leverage on these players is to wait for a free transfer. So they are constantly going to be monitoring situations, contacting agents to see what's going on with talks, and of course offer big signing bonuses if those talks are not going anywhere with the original club. So naturally, Konate is in a bit of danger here for us. He could very much leave on a free, and if he decides to go to Real Madrid, it just goes to show that their strategy is very much foolproof, and that is going to be a problem for us because, well, as the old meme from Breaking Bad says, he can't keep getting away with this. Because that's essentially what's going to happen. They're going to keep getting away with this, all by paying basically $0 and offering as much money as they can to entice that player to join the club. So, very nervous. Come May and June, we are going to see where Konate's loyalties, if he has any, lie. Like I said, all three options I talked about in the previous segment are very much touch and go. I do not care at this point. Well, I do care, but I don't care at the same time because clearly no progress is being made. Real Madrid have clearly been wishy-washy on the subject of even trying to sign him. And at this point, I would rather him leave on a free and decide where he wants to go from there, whether it's stay with us or go to Madrid or go to some other fuck-off club in Europe that, he'll make a name for himself there or something if they want to decide to pay him a bunch of money. But the last thing I'd like to touch on is Jamie Carragher, who has been discussing Arne Slot and Liverpool, especially after the horrific loss to Galatasaray this past week. And his main point of the article is that Liverpool don't control games, which is funny because the whole point of Arne Slot ball is to hold possession as much as you can and create chances based off of that. Well, clearly, most games we have possession. I think that goes without saying. There have been very little games where we have not been dominant in the possession field when it comes to statistics. But how are we still losing games or drawing games or allowing players to draw with us or getting them to or allowing them to score goals and us conceding? That is the question we have to keep asking ourselves, and that is the point that Jamie Carragher's key criticism comes from, is that Liverpool are a million miles off from where they are expected to be, especially considering the amount of money they spent at the beginning of the season. And now we are basically on life support, trying to keep ourselves in the Champions League, and worst of all, we may be eliminated from the FA Cup in just a few short weeks, facing Man City, who's been dominating us all fucking year. So, the reality of the situation is 13 defeats in all major competitions, struggling to control matches despite having possession most of the game, and of course the progression of where we stand in the upcoming Champions League season next season is very much uncertain and is basically what is determining Arne Slot keeping his job or not at all for Liverpool. So it's very much a rough thing to watch. As a fan, I was never, when I started watching soccer, specifically Premier League and Liverpool, I didn't know too much about the ideas that Carragher is talking about. And the more I watch, the more I pay attention, the more I read about things and articles, and I think back to games and I'm like, they're not wrong about this. Or, yeah, they're very much right, and it's an absolutely painful thing to watch. And that's essentially watching Liverpool football over the course of the season. It's almost like watching a basketball match sometimes, where it's like games become the end-to-end type of game where it's like one team scores, then the next team scores after, and it's basically a shooting match to see who's going to concede last. And that also kind of exposes Liverpool defensively because we have been known to concede not only early goals this season, but late goals as well. We've also been lacking midfield control because, well, you would think that we'd be having better midfield control, but it seems like some of our players are not necessarily playing up to the potential that we expect them to, like McAllister. And I'm not even going to shit on Szoboszlai for this because honestly, Szoboszlai has very much been misused the last couple of weeks, being at right back instead of in the midfield. So that is another argument for a different time. There's also been the whole argument of slowing down games, which why would we want to do that? Why would we not want to have teams play and adapt to our tempo as opposed to slowing the game down so much that teams can now adjust in a much quicker span of time because we are just going to pass the damn ball around in the offensive half of the field until the other team decides that they want to counter. So perhaps the most damaging criticism in this whole ordeal is that Carragher says, at no stage this season have I felt Liverpool were in control of a football match. Which I don't know if I necessarily agree with. I think there have been times where we have had control of a football match. I just think it's not as clearly obvious as it was in previous years with Jurgen Klopp, or even last year when we were winning the Premier League. So, to me, I don't know if I fully agree with that criticism by Carragher. I understand where it's coming from, but I don't know if I fully agree with it because there have been a few games, not a lot of them, but there have been a few where I can sit back and comfortably say, okay, I'm not necessarily as worried that we are going to lose this match or concede or a draw or things of that nature. But we're going to have to see. The odds are very much not in our favor right now. We'll be lucky if we even score 2 goals against Gala in this upcoming week's Champions League match. And we'll be lucky if we even win it all against Man City in the FA Cup in just a few short weeks as well. Let's not also forget the piss-poor Carabao Cup exit that we had very, very early on in the season as well. So, basically speaking, Arne Slot is very much fighting for his life to keep his job right now. There is no way to sugarcoat this. And if he's not fighting for his job based on the results that we have seen in the last couple of weeks, or the results we might get in the next couple of weeks afterwards, well, then I think I have to question Liverpool's hierarchy as who's in charge of the club and FSG's stance on this whole thing, because clearly there is a disconnect between what we're seeing on the field and what's going on in the front office, which is not something that's unfamiliar in sports, but I just want it to not happen to my favorite football club. Thank you guys so much for watching today's episode of Liverpool Latest. I appreciate you being here. Be sure to leave a like or some sort of rating on the show if wherever you are choosing to watch or listen. Also, leave a comment about what I have to say down below. I appreciate the comments I do get, and keep them up. It helps me out, and it helps. I would like to know what you think about the show. I would like to know how I could do better to present you guys the news and rumors and such. And most importantly, if you did enjoy everything you saw today or anything you've seen previous, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe. You should be. It's a lot of fun doing this show, and I'm very grateful to bring it to you every single week and work with FanArch in this opportunity. It's definitely made me feel a lot closer to the club, despite making me absolutely miserable watching the matches and reading the news every week. But I do have a lot of fun doing this show for sure. So any support is appreciated. Until then, when you join the Liverpool Latest family, just know that you never walk alone, and I'll see you on the next one.